And maybe we even have some gold. There's a lot of variations, in other words, in this brick that we might see. We can leave some of them with that lighter wash that we have in the background. So now we can kind of get a sense that those bricks have got some variations in color. So let's add some gray. I'm going to have to sharpen my colored pencils here. Whoops. Sorry for the noise. So I like this gray and this black we're going to use for some of these. I imagine this to be like a stone step, granite step that steps out onto the patio. So I'm going to use that kind of very basic light gray, cool gray. And then on the side I'm going to use a wash of black. And just in a few spots, just kind of draw some squigglies to indicate we've got some a stone, a kind of a rough cut stone here that's being used for the steps. So every place I'm adding color, I'm usually not using just a single color. I'm using a variety to create those layers. The concrete that the whole thing is sitting onto, I'm going to go ahead and shade in as gray. And I would obviously do these other sides too. I'm just kind of sticking to this middle part to develop the color. And so now let's start adding our green. This is going to be a really light wash of the crushed stone. Gray. And in areas like underneath where the plants and things are here, I'm gonna go in with some darker shadows by just tracing around the things I've got growing inside that space. So there's going to be some stuff growing. That's casting a shadow on our crushed stone boundary here. We also have some shadows from the tree above being cast here, the edge of that stone. And come to think of it, we would have some shadows here on the red as well from our tree that we forgot to put onto the patio. So we'll do that. I'm using brown and red. And we have crushed stone over here too. And let's add a little bit of shading here. There. So we've kind of started to define our tree shapes too as we do that. And then we're ready to start to build our things that are growing. So I'm going to assume that the leaves on the inside have like a darker pigment. Actually, let's do an underlayment of this neutral green first. So I want this to be and I'm going to use squiggles. I don't like how the shading is coming out, so the squiggles are going to kind of give us a leaf type texture. And I'm just kind of covering the areas that I had defined somewhat by the tree. So there's our undercolor. If we imagine our light, remember, is hitting this wall but not these two, so the light is coming in this direction. Let's put some nice highlights on the lower half of some of these layers that I have for the tree. And then on the back side of the tree, we're going to show some low lights, some shadows. This is kind of giving us the illusion that there might be some layers here, layers in that tree. And then we would certainly see, I think, little bits and pieces of our branches and our branch system showing up. And I'm going to add a little bit more, the brighter pigment on this side. And on each layer of these like overlapping leaves that we're seeing here, we might see some shadow underneath. So that's what I'm trying to make it look like. We've got some stacks of leaves and at different levels. All right, so there's our tree we've got there in the corner. Ooh, looks like I'm just going to continue this shadow here. Put that part underneath the tree because I kind of like the shape that it ended up being. And then let's build some plants here. And I'm just going to use the same kind of shapes that I had here for the plants at the base. And one of the tricks with doing the landscaping to your objects is to let these edges overlap each other. If you don't let the edges overlap each other, it's just going to look very unrealistic, because when you look at the way things are planting and how they grow over their boundaries, that's more how a plant behaves, not staying within the boundaries. So showing all of those little spots where it overlaps is going to contribute to the realism. All right, so you see we've got, a little bit of texture defined there, and it looks like we've got some shadows and things. For this shrub, we'll do 2 layers, kind of one on top of the other. And this one we're going to kind of just draw little voids, and then another layer below, and that will help us to understand how to shade it. So again, the light's coming in from this side, but this down here is a little bit lower. It might be in shadow with some darker colors and edges. Create some shading in the just kind of defining different levels that this shrub might have. Also, we can look and see through the shrub in some cases down to the ground below, so you can show some brown mulch, let's say, behind the shrub, and that's going to help define the shrub's shape as well. Ooh, say that fast. And yeah, so this gives you an idea of how you can add color and a little bit of realism to, by adding the extra lines and the detail, but not getting too crazy with the detail. Playing around with color, we used multiple greens, some browns, we used some grays, we used all sorts of color, and it all seems to harmonize a little bit better with each other because we're using those mixtures of color pretty much everywhere. It tends to work. I also end up having, because of the red siding, a complementary color composition in this because of the colors I've chosen to use, so it's going to end up being fairly harmonious because of that. Now you can choose to continue to color in and render everything here, or you could, just do something similar to what I'm doing here, where we really focus on the outside and have a little bit of the inside defined and leave everything else white. That's up to you. But what this does is really helps us to understand how our living space is going to be, how this outdoor space is going to interact with this inside space, and the colors we can expect to see and how it's going to feel.